What is going on, people from YouTube? Before we start this video, I want to let you know this video was created to be in one part. Unfortunately, when I was doing the editing, I realized that it's way too long and it's going to be extremely boring for you guys. So I decided to cut it in two parts. So enjoy the first part and keep your eyes peeled for the second part to be released. Enjoy. What is going on, people from YouTube? Welcome back to another Pancho Fishing Dummies edition. So today's gonna be our first Talking Fishing with Dummies. Talking Fishing with Dummies. So what the plan today is to go over how we started, what has happened, the gear that we have acquired through this. How many months it's been? 4 or 5 months. So what we want to do is go over the things that took us 4 months and an insane amount of hours of research to get us to where we are and give us the knowledge that we have, the little knowledge that we have. So let's get started.
Fishing with dummies, y'all.
Yeah.
Alright, so when we started this whole mess, I remember, man, like we started talking. I don't even remember how we got into the conversation of getting into fishing.
Because you asked me if I wanted to do something on the channel, hinting that you wanted me to go hunting.
Oh yeah.
But I did not want to go hunting because I don't like getting up that early. And so I was like, well, what about fishing? And then you were like, yeah, I like fishing, but I'm not good at it. And I was like, well, neither am I. So let's do a show about not knowing how to fish.
Pretty much, that's how it started. So that's how the whole thing started. I wanted to collaborate. We have collaborated in other things. For the people that don't know, Matt and I, we both musicians, and that's pretty much how we met. Working at a retail store, music gear retail store, and we became good pals. And I started collaborating in some projects that he had at the time, and that actually triggered I already had the idea of having a YouTube channel, but I didn't know where to begin. I didn't have any knowledge about cameras. I didn't know anything. So, but I had a lot of things that I wanted to put out there. And working in those projects with you, we kind of like got that motivation back.
So it switched.
Yeah.
It went from me asking him to do stuff to him asking me to do stuff.
So here we are. So I remember we went to Walmart because I had a fishing rod that I acquired when I moved to California like 6-7 years ago, and I used it once, and I had a rod sitting in the garage, but I had no idea what was going on. So we decided to take a trip to Walmart and go and see what we could find and try to figure it out, and that was extremely overwhelming to say the least. Like, we were looking at our entire wall of stuff.
Well, it was 2 walls. It was back to back, and I didn't know anything about what. I was trying to pick out a rod because my mom had given me the rods that we ended up taking, but other than that, I was too lazy to get them out of storage. So I knew I wanted to get a rod, but I didn't know what I wanted. And I just remember looking, and there was literally hundreds of rods there. And I had no idea what I was looking for or looking at. And I just kind of grabbed one that he thought was pretty good. It turned out to be pretty good, but we didn't know anything. He knew more than I did, definitely, but that still wasn't that
it
much.
wasn't enough. It wasn't enough.
It was enough to get us started. And then from there, my brain just kind of went crazy, and I got the bug, and about 100 hours later, here we are. I mean,
Easy.
I haven't caught anything, but I now know everything about fishing that I should know, whether it's the size of the reel, the type of line that goes on it, the rod, the type of lure weight that can go on it, the type of lures and baits, and when to throw them, and what time of year, and what color water, and what color lure. But that just all came with hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of figuring it out. So now I know, or now I, have the stuff to do it. It's just getting the opportunity to use it.
It's interesting because I remember we that day at Walmart, it was overwhelming. There was so much. And it wasn't just so much, it was just the different type of the same thing. So I remember clearly looking at the hooks, just this hook section, just looking at what they had. And then you got, first of all, the different sizes, which that already on its own is a big one. Then we got into the type of hooks. Then you got the mosquitoes, the circle hooks, the treble hooks, the wide gap hooks, offset shank, worm hooks. It is so much for somebody that had no clue what we were looking at. We are the type of people that if we decide we're going to do something and we actually feel like we like it, or we have that passion, that drive to go for it, we invested. We're invested. Like, done. There's no questions asked. And that's what happened. Literally, I will say that being completely honest in between the two of us, we have easily more than 400 hours of research. Easy. And we're talking not just research in just like how do you go? No, we're talking really, really detailed stuff.
Taking notes.
Yeah, taking notes, printing out stuff, like books. Like I got a couple of books. It's a lot of information, and the funny thing, and that's why I like it, is the fact it's not just learning how to fish, it's how to fish properly. It's learning how to get to the point where you look at the water, you look at the conditions, and you be like, okay, my chances of success are gonna be based on this technique, this color, because of what is happening with the year, what the fish behavior is. So it is a lot of information that, for a lot of people, it's information that is passed from generation to generation. A lot of people that grow with parents, grandparents that are fishermen get all that information passed on in small amounts, but properly. For us, was like, we need to get all of this in one shot. Yeah.
Everything that we have learned, we've pretty much either learned what not to do, or just from hours and hours and hours. I mean, on my rod alone, I didn't know what the difference was, like why I would need a longer or a shorter rod. And so I guess from there we can start talking about rods. That day we went to Walmart. I got a ugly stick 6'6", 6'6", and that's about all I knew. I did not know what I had, or what it did, or what type of line to put on it, or what kind of stuff you throw on it. All I knew, it was an ugly stick 6'6". But now I know that it's a ugly stick 6'6", medium power, with a 5/8 ounce lure capacity, and it's a 2-piece, and it has a 3500 reel on it, which has different weight capacities of its own. I didn't know any of that.
So yeah,
$30
for me.
good deal.
Yeah, Walmart's.
Yeah, now it's like I think like 45 with inflation.
But still, 45 bucks still not
Even
bad.
that's still good.
But that was the thing. We got there. We had no idea of anything, and like one of the important things and one of the super key things about fishing is you need to have that reference. Know when to use the right rod, the right reel, the right line, with the right weight lures. Otherwise, the feeling is different. You're gonna be bouncing on. Sometimes you're gonna be on rocks. Sometimes you're gonna be on places where there's structures, there's vegetation, and you need to know what the lure is doing at all times. So if you get a bite, you know how to react.
Well, this guy, my mom gave us 2 7-foot rods. That's about all we knew about them. But then turns out that they're 2 7-foot medium heavy rods, and the reel itself is
It's a 4,000.
it's 4,000.
Yeah.
And this guy thought it'd be a good idea. So what was a 6-pound test? You
Yeah,
thought?
with 6
6-pound. How many yards was that? Like 350.
350 yards of
Yeah.
6.
And he's wondering, like, and so he kept chucking it out there, and it kept getting knots, and he couldn't figure. I didn't know why either. But yeah, he would just get super mad because he would get a rat's nest all the time. Turns out that's not putting 6-pound test on a 4,000 rod is not the best idea.
Yeah.
But that's how you learn.
But it's like what was for me was just the fact that I was like, okay, I'm watching videos and watching people fishing. I'm like,
Yeah,
what is
that's what. Yeah.
What is the point of having 7 or 8 different rods? And then you get the bug and you start getting and you start figuring things out, and then you realize why. And it's because each specification in each rod are going to be great at certain things, and depending how you set it up, what line are you using, what kind of material of line that you're using, what size of your reel, is going to have a different reaction. It's going to feel different. It's going to have a different effect on whatever technique that you're applying. Not all of them work for the same thing. Now, is it true that somebody with with whatever rod can fish? Yes. You can cut a fish with a stick and a line, a nylon line. Like, that's not the problem. The problem is, how can you maximize your opportunities and your chances? So that's when we started getting into information. So the first thing that for me was important to understand was, which I didn't get at the beginning, it took me a second to figure it out, is when you use and when you apply a different rod. Now, a good medium to the road, it will be, in my case, I'm working with a 7-foot medium with a fast action.
Which is what I have too. It's a 7-foot medium fast action. Mine's a Shimano, and yours is the Guggen Squad. And that's when we stepped up our game.
Yeah, that's when we started figuring out, okay, like we cannot just work with one thing. So the cool thing with that is, in one of the videos you can see the first cast that I did, I actually ended up getting a bite on that cast. I could feel everything, and I immediately stopped and I turned and I looked at him and I'm like, whoa, I can feel everything. You can feel the lure, what is happening if you're touching vegetation, if you're touching rocks, and it was incredible. I couldn't feel that before. So that immediately was like, okay, this knowledge is worth having, because at this point, if I need to go target a bigger type of fish, we're going for catfish, carp, anything like that, that rod is not going to cut it. And it's not going to cut it not because you cannot pull a big fish out of it. It's just the amount of pressure and amount of poundage that fish is going to put to your rod and the line, the rod is not going to be able to handle it. So that lays the difference on that. So I started with a Shakespeare $19 rod that I bought at Walmart. That rod right now is having a 6-pound monofilament line, which brings us to the line issue. and what's the difference between one and another one, and when do you rather have one versus the other one?
There's 3 basic lines. There's monofilament, fluorocarbon, and braided. I did not know what any of that meant. It made no sense to me. But then I figured out, fluorocarbon is very expensive. Mono floats and braided was a little bit more advanced for me at the time, so I ended up going with P-line fluorochlor because someone at the old Sportsman's Warehouse told me. And so that's what I've been running.
What I know at least about lines is the line pretty much is going to be what is going to be your major link with your lure, the fish, and yourself. That's the one thing, logically with the rod, but that's the one thing that is going to give you most of the information that you're going to need in order to know when to set your hook, how to set your hook, how to reel, where to reel. Everything is going to be depending on the line, and that can be for either your strongest link or your weakest link. If it's your weakest link, you're gonna struggle. If it's your stronger link, then the amount of information that you're gonna gather just from feel and touch is insane. So advantages and disadvantages on all those lines. Monofilament. Monofilament is pretty much the line that has been used the most since fishing got commercialized, pretty much.
Stretches.
Now the thing with monofilament is that you have one, it gives up, it stretches a lot. So for some people that is not beneficial at all, because if you need to react quickly and set up the hook quickly and have enough power to get into the mouth of the fish, the problem that you're going to encounter is that before that hook can have all that pressure, there's going to be a little bit of a stretch, and that time and that little pressure that is going to be coming in little batches might have the fish spit the lure before you even can have the opportunity to just try to set your hook. So, and also it floats. So if you're working with a lure where you need to acquire a little bit of depth,
drop shot,
it's gonna affect how that presentation is gonna look. It's gonna affect how the way that it's gonna be going down, the way that it's gonna be coming in. Every time that you twitch, every time that you do every movement, is gonna affect, because the line is gonna have the tendency to try to stay above water. So it's not gonna be as nice and presentable. Now, monofilament also have another thing that is, a lot of people don't talk about it, but monofilament actually absorbs water. So makes it seems clear to the view the first 5-10 minutes. After that, it becomes almost like white, and it's extremely visual in the water. And one of the things that it was explained to me, and then I had to do a little bit of research just to verify that information was accurate, is that trout, bluegill, and crappie, those 3 are really line pickers. They will look at the line, and if they see it, they're not gonna bite. So monofilament in those cases can be a little tricky. Now, if you're gonna be fishing with a bobber, because you need to have that presentation suspended, now monofilament there works phenomenal. So one, you're not going to have the pressure of the line trying to sink, because actually the opposite is happening. The line is trying to float. 2, the rest of your line that is not directly in contact with the presentation is going to be on top of the water. So if you got fish moving from one end to another, well, they're not going to see the line. The line is above water. So that is beneficial when you're going for something like that.
Fluorocarbon is awesome, but it is very expensive, but it's relatively clear whenever it's underwater, and it sinks, so it doesn't float. So if you have to do like a drop shot, Ned rig, something like that, it's a little bit more advantageous to have that drop down.
Braided have quite a few things. Abrasion resistant is crazy. that's the go-to line if you're gonna be going into brush. You're gonna be getting into a regular place where you normally will get snagged with any other line. That's the cool thing with braiding. If you get, let's say that we're doing top water, we're throwing a frog into a patch of lily pads and there's some reeds in the middle, and you need to work that frog hard to not get stuck. If you do that with a regular fluoro, or you do that with a monofilament, 90% of the chances that if you get stuck or you get snagged, once you put the pressure to come off, it's gonna break. It's just gonna give up. You will not have that with braided. Braided is gonna literally rip through it. You can put a lot of pressure to it. You can work it hard, and it will not break. Which also help if you're getting into lines. You got a lot of vegetation and brush. It will cut through it, and it will put a lot of pressure so you don't get snagged as much. One of the bad sides of braided is non-see-through. It's a solid color you can see. Now braided floats, so it will not go down. You won't be able to see it. The fish is not going to be able to see it. A lot of people use it because of that. Actually, they use a really aggressive color so they can see at all times where the line is. So that is super cool. But you got the option of use a lid, which will give you the best of all worlds. You got this strength, abrasion resistant, the power that you get out of braided. But you can use either mono or you can use fluorocarbon.
Most people use fluorocarbon.
And you will be able to have both worlds without having to have two setups if you're working just in a particular area. Instead of having to switch, you can just, your leader will go straight to where you need to go, avoiding that visual part of it. But if you have any issues, you got now the strength of the braid. There's no give. Here's the thing. It's great for setups on hooks, for bottling big fish. That's amazing. If you get tangled or you get a mess on your reel, yeah, that's a nightmare.
Yeah.
It is a nightmare because immediately, if it turns into a knot, you have to cut it. Like, you won't be able to pick that knot out like you might be able to do maybe with mono or fluoro. You're gonna have advantages, disadvantages, and you're also gonna have one important thing is the feel and the transmission of what is happening with the lure at every given time is completely different with all of those three lines. So it's just gonna depend on what you're trying to do and where you're heading, which it took us quite a bit of line for us to figure all that stuff out. But there we go. We got information about the rods, we got information about the reels, then we got figured out the line situation, and all of this is happening if we're going out. All of this is happening if we're trying things out.
Yeah, it's happening in real time. Get it real.
Yeah. There you go, guys. Thank you so very much for watching. Like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell so you can be notified every time the dummies get together for fishing or whatever other shenanigans that we're going to be getting into. And we will see you in the next one. And the next one is pretty short. Matt.
Pancho out.
Pancho out, man.
Not Pancho. Pancho out.
Pancho is Matt. Later.